transfer. Recording has started. Okay. Awesome. Let's just waiting a few minutes to other people get into the meeting. And if you guys find that you can't open the mural board, just let me know or leave your email or name in the chat box so I could add you into the group. Awesome. Okay, let's start. So you guys can hear me clearly, right?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Awesome. So welcome everyone to our first Grasshopper basic courses. So for the who is really new to the Grasshopper, I think the goal for today is to provide a basic understanding of the Grasshoppers, whatever the settings, the operations, and component type. And also for who have used Grasshopper before, I think the later part of this, the data type for many focus on how to control and manage the data in the Grasshopper will be quite useful. And I placed this mural link in the chat box. So if you guys have any questions or suggestions for the future courses, you could just add a sticker over there, or we could discuss it after the courses. Yeah. So let's begin our courses. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to introduce several websites which I frequently use. First is a tutorial website. So it including many video tutorial and some PDF or books, and you could find many resources over there. And also for this one is very popular. So I also passed another link with it, so you could view the website with different chapter of this course of this book or PDF, and also you could download, like there have some example file of the Grasshopper script. You could just download it over there. And this website, I think this website really did a good conclusion of all different kinds components in the Grasshopper. Like they have description and what's the function of each component. So it's very useful to check it when you have confused about some like list or other stuff. And anytime you get some issue or have some question, you could go to this two website to finding your any result. There have many discussion about Grasshopper, like you could just enter your question, search the specific topic, and there have someone will give you some advice, or also some of them will just create a script or a screenshot of a script. You could just download and play on your end. And another website is this one. Is meaning we use this to download the plugin for the Grasshopper. So there have many different kinds of plugins. And one I highly recommended at first is this bifocals. So it's a plugin to annotate all the name of the components on the top. So you know, every time you grab a script from other people, it's hard to understand it or hard to search what's the function of the component. After this, you could just search the name on the Google or whatever. Just it's much easier to know the whole logic of the script, and another is the topmost viewport. So if you prefer to use your Grasshopper as a full screen, you could use this plugin to make your Rhino as a floating window on the side. So how could we install a package or plugin in our Rhino or Grasshopper? So if you are using Rhino 7, you could just enter the package manager. You could just search whatever your plugin you want to install and install over there. Or if you can't find the plugin over in the list, or whether you are using the Rhino 6, you could also download it like this. You could download it from this website, download, and sometimes it will just have a zip file, sometimes is a GHA file. So after this, we could open the Grasshopper, like enter Grasshopper in the command, or just use this button to open the Grasshopper. So we could open the file and special folders and component folders. So in this folder, it will combine all of the plugins you could just drag your file over there and or copy it. So after this is finished. But sometimes they have some special for like Ladybug or Honeybee. They might need you open your script and hit some button with start installing like that. Yeah. That's for the plugins. So the Grasshopper, I think Grasshopper really provides a very user-friendly interface that allows the designer to generate it and control a complex geometry shape. So this means that you can perform a programming design without having any master of the traditional programming way. Like I think each of the component, actually the backside of the component is like a paragraph of coding. So right now, we could just use the component to replace the traditional coding. And also, every time you adjust the parameter, like a slider or the data you input, you will have immediately reflected in your Rhino. So you could have a real-time feedback. And also, the whole program flow is from left to the right. So which means that we cannot do some loop training in our Grasshopper. So what kind of geometry or design we prefer to use Grasshopper? So actually, I think if you could do that quickly in your Rhino, you could just do it in that way. You don't have to make a script to make the things too complicated. But if you are doing some complex geometry shape design like this, or some project needs some parametric design, which means that you can define your design based on a set of parameters and rules. So rather than manually adjusting each of the element in your design, you prefer to adjust by several settings. I think the Grasshopper will be the tool. Or sometimes you are looking to produce some multiple design iterations or some according to different parameters. I think Grasshopper is also good to use. And also for optimization of design, like there are many building analysis package, like we mentioned before, the Ladybug and Honeybees, Open Studio, stuff like that. So by comparing different design options, so you are able to find the most suitable solution for your project based on those kind of script. Okay, so let's start. So after we open the Grasshopper, we will have a UI system like this. At first, we have the window title bar on the top, which will shows the current file you are using. And we have the main menu bar, and we have the all the component category and each including all of the component inside of it. And there have several more is the plugin I installed. So after that, we have a canvas toolbar. There have some setting is for the preview in the Reno, and we have the canvas for the whole left stuff. And every time we want to open a file, we just drag a file to our canvas. Also, there have several recent file we used, and if the file is missing, the color will become to red. And we could drag a file to open it. And there have some hiding functions like open this file as a group or as a cluster, but actually I didn't use this. And so after we open a file, sometimes, yeah, there have a simple script. So it's preview like this. If we just close the whole window of the Grasshopper, the preview is disappeared, but actually the file didn't close. So if we reopen the Grasshopper, it's just jumping out. So if you want to close the script directly, you could click over there and close the file through this part. And if we want to add another script also into our canvas, we could change the script over there by changing the files. And also if you like grab some script from other people and you want to add those kind of script to your own, you could just Control C and back to your script and Control V, and you will have the script in a group at first. You could just move it around. So if you close your script right over there, it was totally closed. Okay, so for after that, and for the toolbar, we could see that there have a setting like this document preview setting. It shows that the normal color is red and selected color is green. So we could change color of it. So it's default setting like this. So every time there have a preview in the Rhino, and if you click one component, it will give the selected preview of those components. Like this is the surface, this is the circle, this is the point, this is the vector. Yeah, so this is a really good way to check which part of your script gets some issue or you need to adjust it. And so other any stuff I forget. For the for this category, you could right click and display it as icons. It will changing back over there, and right click, it could changing it back. And also some old school people who use Grasshopper really earlier, they prefer to use this like the name of the component in the middle. So you could change it with display and draw icons. It will changing with the name of it. So as I recommended you use the icon, which is much easier to understand the whole script. And we could just use, after we install the plugin that I mentioned before, you will have a glasses over there and you just drag it to your canvas. So it will show the name of the components on the top. And for the name on the input side and output side, you could also shorten it. If you think your script is too long, you could just change this, draw 4 names, or set it to a simple one. So that's for some settings. And also, if you want to insert a part of script, like I want to insert part of script over there, you could hold on Alt and just drag it. So it will drag to left to the right. And also if you select multiple components, they will have some small arrows on the four side. So you could land them on the top or put them on the right like this. And another, let me think, another important thing is many people ask me about the unit of the Grasshopper. So actually the Grasshopper didn't have a place to setting the units is because it used the same units with the Rhino. So if your Rhino is in inch or in feet, so it will be the same. So every time you open a new file of a Rhino, remember to change your unit to the correct one. And if you want to use the Grasshopper in both Rhino file. Okay, so we finished the setting part. Let's go into the operation stuff. So every time we select multiple or only one components, we click the middle button of our mouse, the scroll wheel. So it will jumping out a shortcut menu. So this one is the group. So every time you click the group, it will have make them as a group. You could change the name of it. This is a group. Or you could change the color of it. And default color will be the purple. So after you change color and make the color as default, next time it will use the color you setting, and you could change the type of it to the bubbles. And also you could add another new group in a group. Like I select this one and this one. Group. Okay, so now it's able to move. And if you find your group in a group cannot be moved, you could finding over there, like put it to back or bring it to front. That will be great help for resetting of the group. Okay, that's for the group. And other setting we have a cluster like this. So if your script is really complicated, you could select most multiple of the script and change it to cluster, and it will become one component and with input and output. If you double click, it will jumping into the cluster. So it will have input inside and transfer the data to the outside, and you right click, save it back. And if you want to explore it, you just right click and select explored cluster. Yeah. Okay. So that's for the cluster. And for they also have a preview setting, disable preview. So every time for this component, right now it's like light gray for the color of the component. If you click it, it looks like this. But if you set the disable preview, it will disappear in the preview in the Rhino, but actually it's still working. But if you set disable, it will just stop. So no data will transfer to the next component. So this is also a good way to checking where your script have some issue. Oh, by the way, if you use the displays and open this profiler, because this script is very simple, so it have no differences. If I drag another script, which is more complicated, like maybe this one, so it will shows the time of the components running, and if you double click it, it will shows the percentage of it. And if you find one component, it takes such a long time, and you want to do some debugging stuff, you could just make this disable and rechanging some setting before that, or after you change it correctly and make this coming back. Or another way to do that is you could also use the solution. They have a disable solver. So it will lock whole of your screen. All of your script will be stopped. After you finish your changings, you could just unlock it. And this too is most popular way I usually did for debugging. And another way to do that is like I want to check which the item order of this is correct or not. I could use an item and link the geometry to the list and add an index like 20s. So right now it didn't showing anything, but when I click this, so it will shows the index, the direct number of the circle I selected. So this one is also a good way to check whether your order is in the right way. Yeah. What's next? Something else I forget. Okay. There also have another shortcut is find. So if you would like to find, like I enter the curve, it will give you all the components that have related to curve or like point. I could check them one by one, like see where it is. Yeah, but actually I didn't use this frequently. So another step is, sometimes we are going to show our results to maybe to the clients or to the manager. We don't have to showing the whole script, or it's hard to understand the whole logic of our Grasshopper script. We could just add this. There have three components could do that. One is slider. We right click and use the publish to remote panel. And we back to the Rhino, and over there we right click, finding the Grasshopper out, and there we'll have a slider to remotely control of it. And you could also edit this panel, like adding a separate, adding a new group, some annotate and a new group. So and there have other two. One is the panel could also do that function, and one is the toggle. So the panel is the stuff we usually enter some data in it, like some numbers, and we could change the number from text version to the data version, like a data of list. Or another way is to usually we use the panel to check the data of a component output. So we could see all the data from the points. So we right click and use the publish to remote panel. So it will coming over there. And also a toggle is true and force button. So usually we use this to trigger a script, like whether to start running the script. This is also available to do that. And if you would like to delete some of them, you could just drag it out of the range. Then it will be disappear. Okay. That's for the remotely control in the Rhino. Let's see what's next. Remotely control. Okay, so after that, we are going to introducing some component type. There have several different kinds of components in the Grasshopper. The most important one is some, like, let me just show you over there. There have many geometry, so it's like the point. Delete this. Point, surface or curve, or where's surface, and also the breadth. Not this one. Breadth. Those are we use frequently. Like the way we connect it with the data in our Rhino is right click and set one point or set multiple point. Set one point, it will jumping back to your Rhino and you select it, or let's draw multiple points, like we right click, set multiple point, and we select all of them and hit enter. It will jumping back. So right now it have all those points. So if we want to manage the data, we could use this manage point, and you could delete one of it, and now we lose one data. Also, you could also clear the value. It will make all the data disappear. And also, if we like use a circle, link those points to a circle, and we give it a radius like this. So another function is now the point data transfer to the center. So if you right click the center and choose this, it will make those kind of data just save over there. So even you move those points to the other side, this is still at original place. And if you want to extract the data back to your script, you could just extract parameter. It will recreate another point. Okay, delete. Awesome. What do we have for next? So that's very important stuff for we use those kind of geometry component to grab the data in the Rhino. And another component we use very frequently first is the number of slider. So we could double click and there you could enter the number and use the number of slider, or most easy way is just enter number. It will jumping out a number of slider. Or if you won't have some decimal, you could just enter 70000. Yeah, it will have more detailed number of it. And if you want to change the range of it, you could right click with the value. You could change the minimum and maximum and the value of it, or the type of your number. Also, you could use edit. You could change those in very detail of it. So another stuff is sometimes we prefer to enter a number like a negative number. So one way is to do that is to enter an negative x in the expression. It's like enter a function in combine to your data, so the output of it will be negative. Also, another way to do that, if you just enter the -7, it will becoming a subtraction. So the way you do to become a negative is to enter the 0, -7. So it will become a negative slider of it. And next, we already mentioned the panel before. So the way we enter the panel data is we could drag a panel over there and enter the data inside of it. Or we could quickly start, like use a quotation mark, like enter a data after that. It will jumping out a number with panel with numbers. So if we enter a data like this, and we could right click, change it to a data list. If we zoom in of this panel, we could see that there have several ways to change type or the place of it. Yeah, that's for the panel. And also there have some other input like this, the value list. You could like make them becoming a checklist, and double click, you could change the setting of different options. This is meaning for the parameters. And this one, the graph mapper, which is really frequently used. So every time if you couldn't find your component and or you already have one component, you want to know where it is, you could hold on Control and Alt and click the component you want to check. So it will jumping out where it is on your category. So now we drag a graph mapper. At first it's empty, but you right click, you could choose different kinds of type of it. So it's like give a function in it. So like if we use this, we change some data of it. So the input will be like the X value and output will be Y value. So if we give them a range, it's like data from 1 to 0 to 1 like this. And after we input it, like we drag this like this. And we relink it. So the data will calculate it from X value after the function output Y value. So this is very frequent use in some script doing to changing your data by this graph mapper. And I also where it is, I also have another tutorial for this. So you could just open it and view how could we use that in our project or some script. That's for the parameter. So those parameters are most we frequently use to grab data from Rhino or generated data by themselves. But there have another kinds of components is that they have input and output. From left side is input and right side is output. So usually the input and output is certain, but there have several ones like the addition. You could, after you zoom in, you could add a more multiple inter of it or like a Python script. Because depending on your Python script, you could have multiple input or output just since your script is different. This is for most of the components. And we also have some no output components. It's like the several ones. The first one is very frequently used is one over there is to select different colors like this. And we give them a preview, custom preview. We link the geometry over there and link the color to the material. So right now it will change the color as you setting. So every time we want bake our geometry to the Rhino, we just hit the middle and use this, but it will have a default bake in default layer of it. If you like to make this bake into specific layer, you could right click the component and select the bake over there. And you could change your name, your layers, the color of the layer with color or not, some other setting of this. But actually, even you bake this to your Rhino, the color is still didn't showing in your Rhino is because this is just kind of like a preview in your Grasshopper. So, but there also have some plugins you could transfer all the data setting of the color or of the some name, some specific parameters baked to from Grasshopper to the Rhino. Yeah, and other with output is like this is to show the vector or some tag is also without output or some point list. So those are some components without output. So most of components, we know that if is in dark gray is not in preview or is disabled, or if your components have some orange or red, there must have some arrows or warnings. You could just click these bubbles and to see what's the detail of it and try to debugging of it. So after that, so for this script, if I have another curve, like I draw a curve like this, and I'll grab this with set one curve. If I'd like to combine these two data in this input, I could draw it out and hold on shift. It will becoming adding. So after this, it will have two different data in this input. And if I want to delete it, just hold down Control. Yeah, and disappear. And one interesting you might be find is that after we adding this, the line over there is changing. That's meaning the reason of we changing the data type of this input. Okay, so let's be coming to our hardest part. So what does those kind of line meanings? So if there the line has only a single solid line, that means there have only one branch of the data and only one in the data. And if it's double solid line, which means it have multiple data in one branch. And if it's a dashed line, it will be look like this. There have multiple branch with maybe one or two data. So let's see over there like this. Yeah, and another way to check with the data structural, you could use this one, link that with your data and double click, it will have a data tree. So now only have one branch. If we link it with this, it will be coming into multiple branch and with only one data in one branch. So we see that it's there have little differences is there have a small arrow to the top. So it's a way to change the version of your data. Like if you right click, whether the input or output, you could also right click and there have several settings. The reverse is much easy to understand. Like we original is from 0 to 1, after reverse is back to from 1 to 0. And the graph is like this. Is the way to change, like give each data in a branch to a new branch. So I also have a conclusion picture like this over there. Yeah, graphed a tree by adding an extra branch for each every data items. And also they have a very similar one is flatten, one is simplify. So the flatten is remove all the branching information from a tree. And the simplify is to simplify a tree by removing the overlap shared of all of the branch. So let's test it over there. So if we like, maybe we could combine this at first. So that will be much easier to understand. Yeah, okay. So right now we have a list like this. And maybe we use the data because we can't right click with the input output of a panel. So we use the data to transfer it. So right now we didn't change it, but if we use flatten, it will combine all of data in one branch. So if we use the simplify, it will keep original branch, but the overlap branch is the first one is all 0. So it will delete all of the 0 in the first branch. So it's kind of like this. So Actually, every time you have a new script, you will get confused. So you could just jumping back over there and check. There have some examples to showing how to do that. Also, there have components specific for flatten, graft, also for simplify and flip, some other stuff. And the most powerful component for this is this one. We see that they all have this component for each functions. So it's a path mapper. If you enter a path mapper, it will be empty at first, but you could double click and enter the source and target. You want to change it to what kind of form. So that's a powerful tool to change the data in the version you want. Yeah, that's meaning for some setting for the data on the right click of the reverse, flatten, graft, simplify expression we mentioned before is adding and function in your data. And after that, now we know there do have some different kind of form of the data setting, like one branch or one branch with multiple data or branch in multiple data in multiple branch. So how could we combine or calculating those kind of data? First, we are going to introduce the single list calculation. So let's jumping back like this. So we have a data from 0 to 9 and 0 to 3. So after we use add, it looks like normal at first, like 0, 1, 2, 3. After added is 0, 2, 4, 6. But after that, it becomes a little bit weird. We don't know which number they calculated by this. So another way, let me just hide those kind of script. Yeah, jumping back to the top. I simply create a script to make those kind calculation much easier to understand. So enable, okay. So is I draw 2 points and give them, make them multiple point like the same number over there. We have 0 to 9 on the top and 0 to 4 on the bottom. So right now, the first 5 number is corresponded one by one, but after that, they use the last number of the shortest list to finish all of the other calculation, like they use 4 to add 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is kind of like a default setting calculation rows in the Grasshopper data calculation. So, but is there any way we could change that? There do have 3 different kind of components we could approach. One is this. Repeat longest list. If we link this with the input and transfer it to the output, default setting is the same, but if we right click over there, we could change it to repeat first. So it will use the 0 to calculate it with other number for the first 5, or we use other setting like this or like this. There have multiple stuff you could test. And if you don't want to use the like, I just want to add the number for the first part, and you could use the shortest list. It will trim all of the other data if the list is not corresponded to each other, or trim last, trim start, or other stuff like this. And another one for is cross reference. So this is like they use each of the data in one list to calculate it with each of data in other list. So it's really complicated like this. So you could change the way to calculate it by those three components. But also, that it's very important to remember the defaulting way to calculate it is like added one by one at first, and if one is have a short list, use the last number to calculate it with another one to finish all of the other list number. So if we look at this, this will be the most complicated one to understand it. So right now we have two different lists. One have several branch and with different lengths of it, and one panel is only have 4 in one branch. So how did they calculate it? It's like, let's remember the original, where is it? Okay. So for in the first branch, we use 0 add to 7, so we get 7, and 1 to the 7, 7 get 8. So we get corresponded at first, and we use the last number to finish other calculation. 1 to the 7, 1 to the 7, we get 8 and 8. So it's like the same. We got 0 to 7, 1 to 7, and 8, 8. So all of the rows for, even for multiple branch, is they follows the same rows like to calculation like this. Okay. Yeah, I also passed a description over there, and this is a multiple sets of data to the single data. So let's see whether we could use it. So if we change this part of output to a graph, or change this to a graph, so it's just like we graphed this and graphed this. So right now, the branch of the data structure is the same. So it calculated in the same way. But if we only graphed one side of it, so it becomes different. It's because the structure of the branch is different. So it calculated in the different way like this. Like they use each of the branch to calculate it with this only one branch. It's much easier to understand by like if we merge those two parts of data. And right now, the structure of those two branch is the same. So they just put all of those two data in the same branch. And if we make one graph, so right now they have 0, 0, 0. They have 3 different branch and 1 different branch on other side. So they just add this as a new branch on the top. But what if we want to combine those 10 to 10, 11, 12 to the first branch? We need to make the structure of the branch to the same style. Like we simplify this, become 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we flatten this, it will become only 0. So right now they are the same in the first branch. So it will combine the data with 0 of the 10, 11, 12, and 13. Yeah. Actually, I think those part is a little bit hard to understand at first. But anytime you use multiple script in your work, or you see many different data, and you will gradually understand how it works or how to manage it or control it. So that's the meaning all of the stuff we have today. And for our next courses, we will introducing some components, especially for some like for the list or for the function that the Rhino you can't finish in the Rhino, like the gradient, like the random or some attractors stuff. And I try to combine some our script we did before in our project, so which is much easier to let you guys play with the script, or whether it's easy to know which kind of script is will be frequently used in our project. Yeah, that's it. Awesome. Okay, thank you for your time for today, and hope you guys all have learning something new. And have a weekend, good weekend.